5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast in partnership with Kidney Care UK, sharing faith, knowledge, hope, and love.
Hi, and welcome to Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast. My name is Dee Moore, and I am a kidney warrior. This podcast is dedicated to encourage, educate, and inspire as we explore all aspects of kidney disease, related chronic illnesses, and health. If you have any questions or ideas for topics you would like me to cover, please get in contact with me on social media using the handle Diary of a Kidney Warrior. In today's episode, I am bringing you a kidney warrior story. Now, there's always something you can learn from someone's story, something that can bring inspiration and hope. My guest today from West London, England, is 33-year-old Khiry Rowe-Hopkins. Khiry is a lupus volunteer and peer supporter for Kidney Care UK's Young Adults Kidney Group. Khiry joins me to share his incredible story of his journey with lupus, chronic kidney disease, transplantation, and more, and the lessons he has learned along his kidney warrior journey. Hi, and welcome to Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast. How are you doing today, Khiry?
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good. Welcome to the podcast. Everyone knows what I'm going to say. They're going to say, do you say this every time? But the truth is, it is the truth. I love recording kidney warrior story interviews because, as I say every single time, and it's so true, you learn so much from listening to someone's lived experience with CKD. And every single person I speak to, whether they have a similar or the same kidney disease diagnosis, there's always something new that I learn from each individual. So I'm excited. I really am excited today. So without further ado, I'm going to start with my first question. And my first question is, how did your kidney warrior journey begin? And how were you diagnosed?
So my kidney journey began in 2009 when I was about 18 years old. At the time, I was at sixth form, I was playing football. I was, just being a teenager. And all of a sudden, my joints started seizing up and I was just in a lot of pain, which was very random because as a kid, I'd never gone through any health issues. I was always in school. So it was quite strange. At the time, I just thought to myself, maybe I was playing football. So just my joints were tired from playing football. I just assumed it was that. So I didn't really think anything of it. I just carried on with what I was doing. But as weeks went on, the pain, it obviously didn't get any better. It started to affect me playing football and things like that. So my mum took me to my GP and obviously I explained to them my symptoms, saying that my joints are hurting. I was struggling to walk and things like that. And they said to me, they'll give you 2 anti-inflammatories. And they said, once you finish taking the course of anti-inflammatories, your joints pain should go. So I thought, yeah, I'll take this and I'll be fine. And I'll just go back to living normal life again. But unfortunately, the anti-inflammatories didn't work. So once I finished the course, I went back to my GP and obviously explained to them that this has not helped. If anything, pain's got worse. So they then referred me to the hospital where I had to bring a urine sample. They would do a blood test. When I came there, when I did go there and I explained my symptoms, the doctor said to me that he's 90% sure that I have something called lupus. Now, at the time, I had no idea what lupus was. But obviously, I done my research and I learned that it's an autoimmune disease that affects your immune system and it can impact your joints, like your skin, it can make you tired. So all these kind of symptoms that I was having, like I said, joint pains, feeling tired, these were the symptoms. And he said to me, he's 90% sure that I have lupus. So, as an 18-year-old, it was a big shock to find out I've got an illness. Because like I said, I was healthy growing up. So now my life is going to change. And like I said, he said it was 90% sure it was lupus, but they said obviously they'll send off my bloods and then the urine sample. And then obviously in a couple of weeks, they'll obviously let me know for certain if it is lupus. So, I went home and I tried to enjoy my summer, but in the back of my mind, I had, waiting for this phone call to find out whether I had this condition or not. And about 2 weeks later, I got the phone call to tell me that it was lupus that I had.
So you got this diagnosis of lupus at a very young age. And as you said, you had the shock of now coming to terms with a life-changing disease. So in terms of your kidneys, was your kidney disease caused by the lupus?
Yeah, so once I was confirmed that I had lupus, I had to start going, for hospital appointments. And when I went to like my first appointment, when I had blood tests and things, they said to me that, that your kid, because of the lupus, it has affected both your kidneys, which obviously I know you can live off one kidney, but unfortunately the lupus impacted both kidneys. And so obviously I had to start taking medication and things like that. So yeah, lupus effectively, damaged both my kidneys.
How was life as a young person navigating both lupus and kidney disease?
Well, it was very difficult. The summer, when it first happened, I was quite depressed. Didn't really want to see anyone. I stayed in bed for a lot of time. So I was still feeling quite bad. My joints were still hurting. And I just felt quite depressed. I was supposed to be like going on holidays with my friends and going to play football and things like that. And I couldn't do that anymore. So that summer, didn't really want to conversate or see anyone. My mum like literally had to kind of force me to go and see like to my grand's house and see one of my friends. But other than that, I took it badly. And it took me quite a while to, to actually just come to terms with the fact that I now have this condition and I now have chronic kidney disease like for the rest of my life.
So what was the process of coming to terms with having kidney disease and lupus?
I guess having had good family around me and good friends, and that definitely helped me. So after that summer finished, I managed to go back to sixth form and finish my final year, which I was able to do because obviously before I was in a lot of pain, so it was hard. But once I actually had these two kind of like infusion things called cyclophosphamide and rituximab, and they helped me with my joint pains. And I never had joint pains again after that. So that helped. I was able to go back to sixth form, hang out with friends, and I started to feel a bit better. So I think having good family support and the fact that I was able to focus on something else other than my condition, that definitely helped me moving forward.
When you were diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, was your kidney disease very advanced or were you at an earlier stage?
No, I wouldn't say it was advanced. I'd say it was kind of at earliest stage. I'd say, yeah, because after I finished sixth form, I was at uni for a little bit, but because of the back and forth, so I went to a uni called Chichester, which is near Portsmouth. So because of the back and forth, coming to London for appointments and things, I had to quit uni like near the end of my first year. So after that, that's when they started to gear me up to have my first transplant. So from 2009 till about 2012. So about 2.5 years, I'd say, the kidney managed to last until I had my first transplant.
Was this a preemptive transplant or was it declining?
Yeah, it was declining. Yeah.
So you had your first kidney transplant. So how did that come about?
So, like I said, when I was at uni, they said to me that, your kidneys are failing and you're going to need a kidney transplant. So first, my family members were tested. So my mum was tested, my gran, my aunt. Unfortunately, they weren't a match. So my granddad, he was tested. Unfortunately, he was a match. We had to go through all these different tests to make sure that he was fit enough to, give me the transplant. And obviously, after coming through all of that, he was able to, donate his kidney to me.
So how was the process of receiving the kidney in terms of the actual surgery and your recovery?
Okay, so the actual surgery, like I said, my granddad had to do all these tests. Once he was okay, then we had to go into hospital. I went in hospital the night before. He came in on the morning of the transplant. First, he went down to have the kidney taken out of him first. That took a couple hours to do. And then once they had done that, then I was taken down for them to put the kidney inside of me. And it took quite a few hours for them to do it. Once it was completed, I came out, had to go to a recovery room for a little bit. And then I was brought to the main ward where I was there for about 1 week. I spent about 1 week in hospital. My granddad spent, I think, about 4 or 5 days. I spent about a week, just over a week. And then I went home. You have to recover for 3 months. So you can't do, heavy lifting or anything strenuous, put it that way. So I had to, go home and just rest up. And so after 3 months, I was able to, get back to doing things that I enjoyed. And
So what difference did receiving that kidney make to your life?
it gave me a new lease of life. I was just so grateful that my granddad, put himself in that situation to give me a kidney, because not all grandparents would do that. So I was just, first of all, just very grateful for him doing that for me. And I just, like I said, it felt like a new lease of life. I just thought, now I can, get back to enjoying stuff. I can play football again. I can go to work, and I felt very happy.
Some people listening might be in a position where they need to receive a kidney and are looking into living donation. How do you approach that question? I mean, it's not like going to someone and saying, can I borrow some sugar? Or, can I have a cup of tea? I mean, it's a major operation and it's an organ coming out of their body. What advice would you give to somebody who's looking into living donation? They're looking for a living donor in terms of approaching that subject with people.
Yeah, approaching is not easy, because I didn't really want my family to go through it, because, I didn't want anything to happen to my granddad. And I always thought to myself, just say, he gives me a kidney and he's only got one left. If something happened to his kidney, I'd feel very guilty. So that's one thing. I did feel a bit guilty, but he was adamant that he was going to do it for me. My family were adamant they were going to be tested. If they were matched, they were going to do it. So I would say, obviously, while you may feel guilty that you have to take a family's organ, I would say, yeah, if family members are willing to do it and you're comfortable with them doing it, then I say, why not? If it's going to help you in the long run, then yeah.
It is definitely a difficult subject to approach. And for anyone listening, a living donor doesn't have to be a family member. It can be a friend. It could even be a complete stranger that does living donation. And there are people who have donated kidneys to a complete stranger, which I think all living donors, as I've said many times before, are superheroes. Giving the gift of life is amazing. After receiving your kidney from your grandfather, who gave you that precious gift of life, you went back to life, continued with life as normal, and then, unfortunately, the kidney began to fail. What happened next?
Yeah, so about like 8 months after he gave me the kidney, I was going for my, my checkups, and they were noticing that my kidney function wasn't as good as they would like it to be. It was declining. So, after about 8-9 months, they said to me that you're going to have to have a second kidney transplant. But because my kidney function was so low, they said, while you're waiting to, find another donor, you're going to need to have dialysis. So yeah, that was the next, hurdle to go through.
What type of dialysis did you go on to?
I had hemodialysis.
How was the transition to being on hemodialysis for you?
At first, I struggled because I was working at the time. So it meant I have to leave work a little bit early, 3 times a week, travel to have my dialysis. And at first, yeah, I really struggled with the concept of having to, sit in a machine for 4 hours, 3 times a week. Even though I knew that obviously it was beneficial to me and I needed it, it did take me a bit of time to get my head around. But lucky where I went, the woman that was looking after, she was very nice. She put all the young patients together where we could all, talk to each other. Like we brought our PlayStations in sometimes and things like that. So as time went on, it made it a bit more bearable having other people around me and, and sharing experience with them. So that helped.
It is a long period of time to be connected to a machine and basically be restricted to having to be at a certain place at a certain time for a certain length of time. And especially as a young person, that must have been really challenging. For any young person that's listening to the podcast right now that is facing a similar situation, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I agree. It was hard because I remember things like I went to like Notting Hill Carnival one time and I had to leave early because I had to go to dialysis. So spending time with friends and things wasn't always able to, to do it. But advice I'd give, I'd say, at first it's going to be when you first start, it's going to be, it's going to be daunting. You're going to be a bit upset, but I think as time goes on, depending on obviously how long you're going to be on dialysis for, I think as time goes on, you'll start to not get used to it, but it'll just be part of everyday life. And I think once you are on it for a certain amount of time, you get used to the 3 times a week or 4 times a week, however many times you go. And I think you'll start, obviously it helps. As I've spoken to a lot of people that when they start dialysis, it helps them. They start feeling a lot better from how they were feeling before. So I'll just say to anyone young, it's not going to be easy. It'll be challenging, but as time goes on, it will get easier for you.
Were there any resources or websites that helped you during that particular time?
You know what? To be honest, there wasn't hardly anything, to be honest. I can't lie. I didn't really even tell anyone about it, really. I was quite embarrassed. I don't know why, but I didn't tell really, even my friends. I didn't tell any friends about it, to be honest. I just used to say, I've got to go somewhere. Even work colleagues, they were like, oh, on a Friday night, they'll be going out to eat or something. I'll make up something saying, oh, I've got to go to family member's house. I didn't actually want to tell them that I was going to dialysis. So there wasn't anyone I could really talk to be honest. I'd say no, not any resources, no.
So none of your work colleagues knew that you were a kidney patient on dialysis?
Some of them knew I was a kidney patient, but no one knew. When I started dialysis, I didn't tell anyone, apart from like my close family members.
And that really goes to show what a hidden, invisible illness kidney disease really is, because you were on dialysis and yet people didn't know.
More than tea.
You went on to have a second kidney transplant. How did that come about?
So while I was doing dialysis, my dad, he went to be tested, and fortunately he was a match. So like I said, he done all the relevant tests to make sure that he was fit enough to go through with it. And in November 2013, that's when I had my second kidney transplant.
And how did it feel to receive that second chance of life?
Like, it felt good because I was only on dialysis for about 10 months. I know there's a lot of people that have been on it for, years, but to actually come off dialysis and be able to, start living life again and to have kind of like a second chance at life, I was very, very pleased that it was able to happen and that it was a success.
So in terms of your kidney, what do you do to safeguard and take care of your kidney transplant?
I try and, drink 3-4 liters a day of water. Obviously not drink much alcohol. Try and eat, as healthy as you can. Personally, that's what I do. And, try and exercise and things like that. So that's the things I do to try and, make sure my kidney continues to function. Like I said, sometimes you do all this stuff and things out of control can happen. But personally, for me, that's the thing that I do.
One thing I do say often, but unfortunately is true, is that men are notoriously bad at following up with their health. Maybe they've had the first appointment and then they don't go back to get the results and things like that. So I really want to give the space to encourage men to take care of their health. So what advice do you have for men in general, or young men such as yourself, when it comes to taking care of their health, especially kidney health?
So, it's very important to take care of yourself, not just with kidneys in general. So if there's something that you need to go for, don't prolong it and don't leave it off. Go and do it, because it's better to be safe than sorry, I have to say.
So I know that you've had a lot of different complications during your kidney warrior journey and your journey with lupus. So let's talk a bit about that. So what have you had to overcome?
So after I had my transplant, I was fine from 2013 after my second transplant, I was fine for about 5 years, up until about 2018. I was out one day with my friend. He was actually getting married and we went suit shopping, and I was coming back and I started to have some discomfort in my side, like my rib area. I got hurt and the pain got worse. I wasn't able to sleep overnight. I was like in agony and I had no idea what it was. I went to the hospital the next day. They weren't sure what it was. It was just kind of back and forth, coming up from hospital back again, because they weren't able to see what the problem was. And then after a couple months of like being in that hospital, they diagnosed with something called lymphoma, like a blood cancer. So that was, literally the first hurdle. I had to have chemo and all these, had to have chemotherapy, things like that. So literally all of 2018, from like March 2018 till about, say, September, October, I was in and out of hospital. Couldn't find out what the problem was until they actually diagnosed me with lymphoma. And then I had to, like I said, have treatment and things like that. And then after 2018, so after I came home, I recovered, I managed to go back to work like early 2019 or like April 2019, I went back to work for a couple of months. And then it came to about September 2019. I was actually away on the young adult kidney trip that they have every year. I was on that. Coming back from that, I started to like have some like bad chest pains. But actually, like, thinking about it now, I should have actually gone to the hospital earlier, but I didn't do anything about it. And then there was one day I went to watch my brothers play football and the pain was really bad. So I got admitted to hospital and I was on like a heart ward. So they thought I had something called myocarditis, but it wasn't that. Then I got put on the ward. I was allowed to come home. And then it was the day of my twin brothers. It was their 30th surprise birthday. I was supposed to go to it. And I must have woken up in the morning, gone to the toilet. And I was with my wife at the time. And I collapsed on the floor. So I don't remember. Collapsed on the floor. I think they said I had a mini heart attack. I managed to regain consciousness, went to the hospital now. I was in hospital for about a week. And then all of a sudden, I had a heart attack. It's out of nowhere, sort of. And then I went to have like a further 2 heart attacks. And it was because of a clot. I had a clot in my heart, on my lung. So I had a clot, and obviously they didn't know about it. It was touch and go. Like I said, they told my family that they're gonna keep trying. They're not gonna give up because I'm young, but it's not looking good. All my organs are shutting down. But somehow, I don't know how, but fortunately, I'm still here. I managed to pull through. That was a crazy year, 2019.
So lupus, kidney disease, lymphoma, heart attacks. I mean, you really have had so many massive health challenges to overcome. How did you get your mind around all of that?
It's not been easy. There's been times where I don't know whether I'm coming or going. There's been times when I thought I can't do it anymore. It's too much to deal with. But somehow I just managed to, like I said, I've got great family support, and they've been massive in like helping me get through like all my challenges. Like without them, I don't think I'd be here today. They've like been in my corner throughout my whole journey, and it's me myself having the strength to to come back from all the battles that I've been through. Just thinking that what, can't give up, so I've got to keep going, and I think that's the mentality that I take.
Gotta keep going is definitely one of my mantras. I think for everyone who's a kidney warrior, having that ability to keep going in the face of so many challenges is testament to being a kidney warrior. And I know some people don't like that as a term. They say, oh, I'm not a warrior, I'm just me. But I always say it takes warrior strength to live with this disease. And you are definitely testament to that.
I also wanted to add, so I would say 2021, that was another difficult year. I had steroid withdrawal. So the hospital made me like reduce my steroids, and they done it too quick. So I'm ending up in hospital in 2021 for about 3 months. I was literally in bed for 3 months. I couldn't move my hands properly. Like I lost all the limbs like in my leg. I was literally I lost my hair. Like I was in bed for literally 3 months. I had to have like a little bit of rehab in the hospital, and then I had to go onto another rehab center for a couple of weeks to start walking and things again, because literally I lost all the limbs and muscle in my arms and my leg. And that was quite challenging. That was a challenging time as well.
Wow. And that's from them reducing the steroids too quickly.
Reducing steroids too quickly, yeah.
That is just shockingly unbelievable. Like, so you had to go through the process of having to learn to walk again and take care of yourself again and everything.
Yep. In the hospital, I had to use like a stick, a frame to start walking again. And like I said, then I was sent on to a rehab center where they could where I had a timetable when they could work with me every day to actually get my strength up again. It took a couple of weeks.
So through all the challenges you've faced in terms of lupus, your kidney disease, the heart attacks, your lymphoma, the second kidney still managed to survive throughout all of that experience?
Yeah, I don't know how. There was times when they thought that the kidney was rejecting a bit, and I had to have like emergency dialysis a couple times on some of my admissions. But on the whole, the kidney somehow has managed to, survive all of that. And it's not even the end. There's even more. We've got a few more things that's happened after that.
So what else has happened?
So in 2022, I ended up having an ileostomy because I had to cut like a meter of my bowel away because it was just so random. I was eating some food at my uncle's house, and then I started to have some discomfort in my stomach, and I had to go to hospital. And then they told me that you're going to need an ileostomy because your bowel has burst. So they had to cut a meter of my bowel away, let it heal. I had to have stoma for like 18 months from October 22 till about the end of 2023. So like a year and a bit, I had to have stoma. And then they obviously, once they had to let the bowel heal, and then I was able to have a reversal. So I also went through that as well, which wasn't easy to deal with. That was very stressful, the stoma.
That truly is incredible. And I hope for anyone listening who's also having additional challenges, it gives them hope that the kidney can actually survive through all of those other additional medical conditions. So I hope for someone listening, that gives them hope as well.
Definitely.
So I know that you're active on social media and you also have a kidney health podcast as well. So tell us your handles and about your podcast so people can support and follow.
Yeah, so me and my friend, she's also a kidney warrior as well. We decided to start a podcast a few years ago, and just basically talking about, different things to do with like CKD and other additional things that people go through. So we've talked about, lupus and mental health and people on dialysis, people that have had a child while having kidney disease. There's different topics around CKD. And so that's what we do. Podcast handle is Our Journey with CKD. That's our handle for our podcast on Instagram.
And where is the podcast available?
It's available on Spotify.
Okay, so I'll be putting the handle and the link to the podcast in the description box. So please do give Khiry a follow and support the podcast. So do you have a final word of encouragement for the listeners?
Well, I'd say to anyone, that's going through kidney disease or going through any kind of illness, I'd say don't lose hope. Keep fighting, keep following your dreams. If you have a passion, don't think that because you're on dialysis or you've got kidney disease that you can't still pursue what you're interested in. Showing from what I've been through, if I can, get through all these different hurdles, then anyone can. I'd say, talk to people as well. When I was first diagnosed, I was quite embarrassed to tell friends about my condition. I'd say always keep talking to people, family, friends. Just don't keep it all in. Talk to someone. It definitely helps. And I've grown to learn that over the years.
Thank you so much for joining me, for sharing your story. Thank you for being so open and so honest, and for the wonderful advice and encouragement that you've shared. I know that this will help so many people. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. And anyone listening can get something out of it and it can help them in their journey.
Thank you for listening to Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast. And don't forget that you can contact me on social media using the handle Diary of a Kidney Warrior. Please do subscribe to the podcast and please do tell a friend. New episodes of this podcast are released every other Monday. Until next time, take care and choose to live.
Diary of a Kidney Warrior, sharing faith, knowledge, hope, and love.